Time now for your Mayotivations, presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. One more game to cap Week 8. Giants Steelers, lot to live up to after what we saw on Sunday, and let's be honest, I'm not sure it's going to. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, 1-14 after dark, which is the worst record in prime time by a quarterback since 1970. And Pittsburgh's last loss on a Monday Night Football game came when the first George Bush was president, back in 1991. Okay, so let's see what our guys from Pushing the Pile think. Kyle Long and Mike Renner here to discuss, taking up their usual spots on a Monday. All right, so Danny Dimes, you heard it there, one of the worst records in terms of the sun going down. But Steelers quarterback Russell Wilson, he's actually pretty good on Monday night, sitting at 11-5. So when we look at this matchup, he had a good debut last week, but what should he expect to see from this Giants defense this week?
A lot of Dexter Lawrence in his face. Backup center McCollum in there for Frazier, who's been a really good player for Pittsburgh. He's the center, so it's going to be right in front of Russell Wilson's face. We're going to have to see the health of that calf come into play with Russell getting outside the pocket. Obviously, we fell in love with the deep ball again. The moon ball, as Pete Prisco likes to call it, down the field to George Pickens.
He says it a little differently.
Moon ball!
Yeah,
that's what he does, Prisco. Well, I think we're going to have to see a number of different ways to get this offense going. And, you know, I was really happy for Russell Wilson to see the deep ball going. Getting Pickens involved, obviously, is huge. But it's got to be more than just Pickens for this offense moving forward. I know you got the Giants, but I want to see some other wrinkles for the Steelers offense.
Yeah, they are not going to challenge that Giants defensive front. You're going to see heavy play action, heavy running game. They are not going to drop back pass with, one, this Giants front, and two, all the injuries they have up front themselves along their offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I expect it will be run, 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 play action, deep shot over the top, and they're going to try to keep this game probably a low-scoring affair. They're probably just going to try to protect the ball and eke out as many points as they can to sneak away with a win.
And you know what about the halfway point of the season right now? It's always funny to kind of reflect and look back at what we thought certain teams were going to be, and the Steelers were the long shot to win the AFC North. We certainly didn't think they would be in this position with the Ravens losing to the Browns. They're still very much in it in the AFC North, in large part because of Mike Tomlin being Mike Tomlin and this incredible defense. Mike, how impressive is it? And I mean, is it surprising? It is Mike Tomlin. He's, I think, arguably one of the best coaches in the NFL. How impressed are you with what he's been able to do with this team and get them this far? We're all kind of counting him out.
Yeah, I think we all just take it for granted at this point, right? That they are going to exceed expectations every year. And so for them to be 5-2 atop this division, a big favorite here to go 6-2 and really take a stranglehold, it's like, no one's surprised, but they should be, because I do think, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they've been fighting an uphill battle pretty much week in and week out because this defense has kept them in games, and especially this defensive line. It's not only the guys you know about, whether it's T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, it's the guys you don't. It's Alex Highsmith. It's Keanu Benton on the interior. There's a lot of players on this defensive line getting the job done, and the Steelers defense, it's about as good as it gets in the NFL right now. There's not a lot of defenses playing at a higher clip than they are.
Yeah, Mike, it's like the dark ages when you look at the Steelers, but in a good way defensively, like the old school melee siege style warfare. They win the line of scrimmage week in, week out. And to your point about Mike Tomlin, there's something in the water there in Pittsburgh where this team shows up and knows that they can play with that MO every single week. Now you get Russell Wilson, this offense rolling along. It's a real formidable opponent in that division.
On the Giants side of things, after former running back Saquon Barkley ran roughshod over them last week, we saw clips, of course, of that conversation that Joe Shane had on Hard Knocks, and John Mara came out and said, look, I'm not looking to pull the trigger anytime soon on firing the general manager or the head coach, despite what everyone seems to think should happen during the season or in the offseason. He's preaching patience as he wants to see this process out, that he's been impatient in the past and it's cost them. Do you believe him? Because it sounds kind of like the kiss of death. We've heard that before. So, Kyle, what do you think? Do you believe what Mara's saying, or do you think that there is a possibility that there are going to be some changes either later in the season or in the offseason?
I don't believe anything any of these guys say, by the way. You know, that's why I'm at this desk, and I'm not in the locker room right now.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when you look at the Giants, they've had some real hiccups in terms of health. And Malik Neighbors started off so hot with Daniel Jones having kind of a resurgence with Malik there and a real threat down the field. You look at the left tackle, Andrew Thomas. He goes down. Now you're stuck with a situation where you don't know who's going to step up and protect for you, but it ain't going to be pretty. So now the Giants find themselves in this hole again offensively with a ton of questions. I'd be interested to hear what Mike has to say, but Daniel Jones got an opportunity to prove himself. He did a pretty good job early, and then things have kind of fallen apart for the Giants.
Yeah, I do not believe him about especially the GM position there, because if you just objectively look at how Joe Shannon's went about his business and acquired talent for this roster, it's not good enough. And that's why they are where they are, whether it's the Daniel Jones contract, whether it's his history of first rounders. When they had those 2 top 10 picks, Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal's a backup. Kayvon Thibodeau was the weak link along that defensive line before he got hurt. And then last year's first rounder, Deonte Banks, has not played up to snuff. So that many whiff picks, that many whiff decisions in free agency, when it all adds up, I think it's maybe not going to happen during the season. You don't fire GMs during the season. But at the end of the year, it's going to be hard to look this team in the eye and say we're going in the right direction. And for that reason, I do think he'll probably be gone.
Yeah, we just saw the Giants offensive ranks there, and it's really not good entering week 8. Daniel Jones isn't good, as mentioned, in prime time. He has the worst primetime record by a starting quarterback. And Mike, to your point, as this team is constructed right now, how can Daniel Jones lead this team to kind of, buck the trend there of not being good in prime time?
I'll just say I don't think he can.
Yeah.
I just don't think not only him, but then the offensive line in front of him. When your best offensive lineman, Andrew Thomas, goes down for the season, and we saw what happened last week with Josh Uzudu giving up 2 sacks at left tackle, and now they're saying they're going to rotate a left tackle. It's like rotating a left tackle is
rotate who gets beat against the Steelers.
Exactly. I don't want to be rotating at. So I do think the Giants, they're just behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup does not bode well for this Giants team. We're trying to get right. Stella's trying to get her groove back, but unfortunately, he's trying to get her groove back against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what do? They get after the quarterback. They get after the passers. They collapse pockets. And when it's not your tier 1 level of protectors, you're looking at a long night. And on national television, no ownership wants to see their team get embarrassed.
As we take a look at that worst primetime records there. All right, so let's get a pick here because Steelers, the line's changed. It was 6.5. Now it's down to 5.5, favoring the home team. The total sitting at 36.5. So what are you thinking for this game tonight here?
I've got the Steelers. I think they're going to build on what they did offensively last week. And obviously, I fully expect this defense to go out there and be the MO of this football team, really the reason they win games.
Yeah, I have to agree with the Steelers, and I think they're going to cover that line just because I don't see the Giants scoring points. And on the flip side of the ball, George Pickens, one-on-one against those cornerbacks, that's going to be a mismatch. Even if it's just jump balls, he's going to make enough plays for the Steelers to put some points on the board.
Are we going to hear what Russ's catchphrase is going to be?
Yeah,
I've been waiting on the edge of my seat. Let's steal one.
Let's steal one.
Pete said it was going to be something about a moonball.
What do you think, dude? Is that good?
It's a little cheesy, but
It's so bad. It's so bad.
But that's par for the course with Russ. It sounds like what Russ would say.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Renner, Kyle Long for pushing the pile here, talking about Monday Night Football here with us on HQ. What do you got on the program today, gentlemen?
We did a full weekend recap of all 13 games.
I cried about the Bears for like 20 minutes.
You know what? My stepmom's crying about the Bears, too.
Tell her to call me. We can cry about it together.
Download and follow Pushing the Pile wherever you get your podcasts, or you can scan that QR code and watch the latest episode.